Hey there everybody, Mazarok here, and today I want to do a tank breakdown, helping you guys maybe choose a main tank for Dragonflight, going over what I think about them. I'm not going to be tiering them, this is just kind of 5 minutes on each tank. I will have timestamps further along if you are looking for a specific tank. And of course, you know, just kind of giving my general thoughts. Obvious disclaimer here. All tanks are going to be good to get your Keystone Master or to, you know, your plus 20s. Where I'm going to start being critical is in performance areas, in higher keys, or just in kind of general glaring weaknesses or factors or things like that as I am talking about them. Before we do get into it, please do like, comment, subscribe. We are 100 subs away from 5K. You guys are just destroying it. Thank you so much for all the love and support. There is a Patreon link down below if you wish to support me directly. There's written guides for a bunch of the tanks, and I am working on more, as well as some early access footage and stuff like that when it does come around, unedited footage and things like that, if you're looking for that sort of thing. There are t-shirts, hoodies, long sleeves for sale, showing up on the screen right now if you are interested in purchasing one of those for Christmas for yourself or anything like that. Check those out at the Teespring link down below. Then lastly, there's a Twitch and a Discord link down below if you want to join a wonderful community full of people or just watch me stream. Let's get into it. So in no particular order whatsoever, let's start with Vengance Demon Hunter. Vengance Demon Hunter has been a tank for me that over the last period of time, I went from really not liking it at all and wanted nothing to do with it in Season 1 to it slowly attaching itself to me bit by bit, and over the course of Season 3 and 4 and then in beta testing in Dragonflight, I have really fallen in love with this tank. The talent trees did so much for the tank. It is actually pretty incredible, the stuff that you can do with it now. The playstyle is fun, it's quick, it's engaging. It's really strong, it's really tanky. You have several things that you can do with the build itself. In Dragonflight, you know, you have several options you can go for kind of general sustained tankiness, burst tankiness as well if you want to go with Fiery Brand. For example, like, you know, you can 2-charge the Fiery Brand now on a 45-second cooldown if you choose to go that route, which will allow you to be very, very tanky in certain scenarios, but you're giving up some general sustained tankiness throughout the entirety of the encounter. But that's really kind of your choice on, you know, how you want to play it. It deals very, very good damage. Its survivability is great, and it feels tankier than it really ever has been. And you're losing none of the mobility. Elysian Decrees making a return if you want to play extra offensively, but also Fodder to the Flame is making a comeback for some reason for Necrolord, but it's actually looking like it's performing fairly well. I think it's been reworked or whatever. This is one, whenever I've tested it, I've never really liked it. It's really kind of not for me, but at the same time, if that's your playstyle, if you enjoy playing with it, if you like summoning a demon and hitting it with a glaive, you can absolutely do that. There's, you know, fun options like the Hunt that have come around and put into the class tree, which you can pick to get a purely offensive CD. You can also get Collective Anguish if you wish to go that route. This isn't a guide or anything. Like, I'm not saying, hey, pick this build. I'm just giving an overview of how the tanks feel. And Vengeance feels really, really good. It's really, really fun. Unfortunately for me, it's not going to be one of my main 3 for the only reason our raid leader is playing a Vengeance Demon Hunter, and it's the only thing that he plays ever. So really, we've got the Demon Hunter, and we have several Havocs in our raid group as well. So we really don't need any more Demon Hunters, which is fair. I mean, that's fine. So for me, it's not going to be in my main 3, but it is one that I'm absolutely going to be leveling with because it is a lot of fun in Mythic Plus and in AoE scenarios. But one of their biggest factors that have always been kind of hurting them for the last little while has been their single target. Throughout Shadowlands, their single target has really been not great, and their AoE been fantastic. The new talent trees shore up their single target a lot better and allow them to kind of have really good single target. And you don't have to give much up for it. You kind of actually just get it with a couple of talent points here and there without like a major like some of the talent points where you put something in and you're like, okay, but I want this, but I have to give up this major thing. It sucks to kind of have to choose between the two. The stuff that you have to do to get that good single target is really easily accessible, which is really nice, actually. And it's just kind of a couple choices that you have to make. Sigils are making their return, of course, with Quicken Sigils. You're going to have Sigil of Silence, which is going to have a nice 20% damage buff component to it when you do apply it. So whether or not it's something that you were using a lot in Mythic Plus, this is something that you can slam on cooldown unless you know you need it for a particular thing to get a nice big damage amp from it, which feels really good. The one weird thing about the tree, which is kind of going to be good, good for beginners and something I've been testing out myself, is you can actually choose whether you want all your sigils placed directly on you or whether you want them placed on your target. So whatever target you have, you can hit Sigil of Flame, Elysian Decree, Sigil of Misery, whatever, and it immediately gets centered on them, which is kind of okay, but most Demon Hunters are going to opt for wanting to place them themselves. But this is an extra click, right? Because you have to click the sigil, then click where you want it, versus just having the one single click. So for beginners, this is actually a fairly good option, but all around, I think Vengeance is in a fantastic spot going into Dragonflight, and I'm personally very excited to play this. Their tankiness, the ease of play, the sustain, the damage is all really good. Let's now talk about Guardian Druid. For a while now, Bears had a reason to doom and gloom. The tree came out, it looked like an absolute mess for them. Spoiler alert, still is. Their damage was low. Everything, there was nothing good about this spec. Everything felt just terrible, aside from it was really decent in the self-sustained tankiness department, but the damage was all off, everything was all off, the builds were weird, but then they got some weird buffs. You know, Wildfire got, after the Wildfire got buffed, if I'm not mistaken, you know, it's been a long day. It's 7 o'clock at night while I'm recording this. I know, still early, but I've been up since way too early, and I had a lot going on today, but they got some weird buffs going along to help with the utility and the healing department, and then they got a 50% aura buff on pretty much every Guardian Druid ability, Swipe, Thrash, Moonfire excluded because it was already a major portion of their damage, but Maul and Mangle and everything. And what this did is it threw Druid into a D tier spec into the upper echelons of A and maybe even S from kind of what I'm hearing from and seeing from other people. From what I've played for it, rotationally, it's fun, it's simple, it's not... If you're not a fan of Guardian Druid as it was before, it's not going to change much. There's no real crazy new interaction that you're getting, but it is just an all-around general solid tank. And it is still the only tank in the game that has a ranged DPS off-spec if you choose to go that route. Boomkin is very popular in Raid, so if that's something that you like doing and you still want to tank for Mythic Plus, you can easily do that with Bear and not be laughed at out the door, because Guardian Druid is in a really good spot right now. Their healing is really good. Their self-sustain is really good as well. They have extra healing with the new ability, or the new upgraded ability after the Wildfire. I could be saying that name wrong, but that's, yeah, really good. You're bringing still a ton of utility to the mix. All around, Guardian Druid is in a fantastic spot, and anybody that was thinking of maining Bear, you can do so and feel confident that you are bringing an all-around great class. Great utility, you're bringing a res and a brez, you're bringing self-sustain, you're bringing tankiness, you're bringing off-healing when it is needed, especially on those bursting weeks or things like that. After a pull, you can start throwing some rejuves out on people, which honestly is really good, and you're going to help the healer kind of conserve mana between pulls, on kind of allowing things to go by a little bit quicker, but you're just bringing a lot to the table. On the Doom and Gloom side of things, their tree is still an absolute wreck. The spec tree for Guardian Druid, in my opinion, is probably the worst out of all 6 specs. That's not to say that the talents in the tree are bad. The pathing in which you have to get them just feels terrible. Like, if you want Incarn, you have to start at like the 4th row to go down and get it, because if you don't, you're completely screwed from getting Incarnation other than that, which you have to start taking this weird pathing to get stuff that you don't want, and you're giving up great stuff to get stuff that you don't want so you can get stuff that you want later. And to me, that feels like just not a great choice, right? If I'm choosing between two great things and I know I'm sacrificing one great thing to get another great thing, that's good choice. That's fine. I'm okay with that. It sucks I have to make that choice, for sure, but making the choice between two really good things is great. Making the choice between really bad things and really great things is not fun. Not fun at all. And that to me is why I don't like the bear spec tree at all. But I think it has the potential with a reshuffling of talents and adding some pathing nodes along the way to just being an absolute monster. And that might be why they're taking their time or just really evaluating to see the final outcome of Guardian Druid, because the potential for it to be just an insane S-tier tank is there. It's in the talent tree. It's just a matter of connecting the right dots with the right talents. And that can be maybe their hesitation when they're doing it or whatever have you not, right? So that's the big gripe with it. But at the same time, Galactic Guardian is great. Moonfire is great. Moonfire Healing is great. There's so many good things to talk about Guardian Druid right now that's outside of the spec tree, and performance-wise, they're doing absolutely great. So Guardian Druid mains, feel happy in your choice that you've got a good tank. Blizzard has listened, and you are solid. And I guess we started with the leather tank, so let's, keep going on with that theme with the Brewmaster Monk. Brewmaster Monk got a very interesting talent tree for class and spec, with a lot of really good options at their disposal, some really fun rotational abilities that in actuality smooths out the rotation a little bit and makes it insanely fun. I'm not gonna lie, my time playing Brewmaster, damage-wise, has been so fun. The Fire Legs build, where you're just, spinning the wind with your legs on fire, dealing a bunch of damage in AoE, is really fun. You have a lot of buttons to press, which is kind of a pro and a con depending on how you like to play. It's a personal play style. Some people like more simple buttons, or not more simple buttons, but a simpler rotation like Guardian Druid, or more complicated rotations like Brewmaster. And Brewmaster definitely has a more complicated rotation. Now, that is neither a good or a bad thing. It's really all dependent on you, the player, and how you like to play. So with that, you kind of have to say, all right, so what are the buttons that I press? What are the defensives that I have? What do I have to keybind? And with Brewmaster, it's actually kind of a lot. But the spec is insanely fun rotationally, damage-wise, when you know you're managing your energy correctly and you're just going on your little tear that or so whatever have you call it, the numbers really add up. And in AoE, holy crap, you just crap out a ton of damage. The spec and the class trees are insanely kind to Brewmaster in those regards. Resonant Fist is performing exceptionally well, and you do have a lot of options when you go down there. You got access to a lot of new defensives that you can get simultaneously. I know Dampen Harm's not new, but taking that and Bob and Weave at the same time hasn't really been a thing. Throughout Shadowlands, you could only pick one or the other. Now you can get both. Add Zen Meditation and the Zen Meditation upgrade if you so choose to get it, which is probably more of a raid ability than a Mythic Plus ability, but still it's a nice extra defensive to take. You have access to Diffuse Magic now, and when used properly, Diffuse Magic is a beast of a defensive and an absolute fantastic option to take. The problem with Brewmaster has to do with its self-sustain. You do have a lot of new tanky defensives that you can take and you can customize. You can change your fortifying brew around and things like that, and you can drop down the cooldowns of said brews with proper rotational play. The problem is the 40% HP buff that has arrived in beta Dragonflight is not on pre-patch, by the way. So for anybody that's been playing Brewmaster now, that buff isn't live. That buff is only accessible to level 70 Dragonflight players in beta. That has really, really hurt Brewmaster because all of their healing is attack spell power based, right? Expel Harm, Vivify, and things like that didn't get amplified with the 40% nerf. In fact, it hurt them, and it hurt their self-sustain tremendously, to the point where they are one of the most difficult tanks to play, because you do also need a healer that is okay with, you know, actually healing you quite a bit of the time. The stagger mechanic is a fantastic option for mitigating damage, but the thing is how you take that damage can be very technically difficult for the inexperienced brewmaster on how to properly utilize purifying brew and to manage your stagger stacks. Because if you don't, it's very easy to die, because Expel Harm barely heals you at all. Vivify, although you can get instant and an increased amount, doesn't really heal as much as you want it to, even when you take all of the abilities to do so. So the self-sustain to Brewmaster really has taken a hit, and that makes it probably one of the worst self-sustaining. It's not even probably. They are the worst self-sustaining tank. In fact, me and some other tanks in the community were actually expecting some sort of Brewmaster buff to things like Expel Harm and Vivify to give them a better chance at self-sustain, and we're kind of all surprised that didn't happen last week. So, like, as of recording this, it's November 20th, I am really hoping that they do get that self-sustain buff, because damage-wise, they are in a fantastic spot without any issues there at all. What happens is you do have your moments of extreme tankiness with your defensives, but when those defensives run out, you are in dire need of a healer, and you have very little self-sustain to keep yourself up. But does that mean you can't play Brewmaster in higher level? Absolutely not. They are in a really, really good spot. This is just me talking about critically about the flaws and weaknesses of certain tanks and, you know, things like that. And the self-sustain for Brewmaster right now is their only flaw, but it is a major one. Protection Paladin. This is one, whenever I talk about Protection Paladin, I always get dumped on in the comments by people saying Prop Pally is absolute garbage, and it's terrible, and it feels terrible, and all the whole thing. The whole thing. Guys, Protection Paladin is a really, really good spot. They are absolutely fine. I get it. Avenger Shield doesn't generate holy power. Get over it. All of Shadowlands, Protection Paladin has had 2 stacks of Hammer of the Righteous, in certain cases Blessed Hammer with 3 charges, and 1 charge of Judgment in Mythic Plus scenarios to generate holy power. And that is not great, right? But now in Dragonflight, you have access to 2 charges of Judgment and 3 charges of Blessed Hammer to have 5 globals on short CDs to be able to generate holy power, which actually does really smooth out the rotation, right? Avenger Shield, while it doesn't generate holy power, it deals stupid amounts of damage in Mythic Plus with Tears Enforcer thrown into the mix, and a well-timed Divine Toll is an absolute nuke. Easy, without any problems. I had no issues hitting wings and then immediately bursting for 170k when you know how to time your Divine Toll properly. It's not something that you want to use necessarily to pull with. You want to use shields, judgments, and things like that to get everything in, and then once everything's clustered, a good Divine Toll will just nuke, and it feels so good to press. But on top of that, Protection Paladin is getting access to a lot of new defensives. You can choose towards Classic Wings or Sentinel Wings. I guess let's call it Sentinel Wings, which is a 30% max HP buff and a 30% DR that degrades over time, and when you add the Zealot ability from the class tree, you can extend wings long enough to be able to actually really extend that DR for quite a bit of time. On top of that, you're getting access to another damage reduction component, which is Eye of Tyr making a return. So now you have Ardent Defender, Guardian of Ancient Kings, Sentinel, and Eye of Tyr that you can play with as defensives, where pretty much all of Shadowlands, all you had was Ardent Defender and Guardian of Ancient Kings, because you had to choose between Righteous Protector and Final Stand, and 99% of the time, most people were picking Righteous Protector, so you didn't even have access to Bubble. But now you have access to Bubble as well. And the Resolute Defender Conduit making a return no longer extends Ardent Defender, but now reduces the cooldown of Ardent Defender, and Divine Shield. So you're getting extra synergies with Final Stand and Resolute Defender now. So you can pretty easily get Bubble down to 2 minute 45, 3 minutes with easy talent choices and good play to have a full 8-second immunity for 1 talent point on top of 4 other defensives. They're feeling incredibly tanky when played right. And their damage is just fine. You can play the Of Dusk and Dawn build if you so choose to do that, which from what I'm seeing in testing provides a higher AoE damage component if you so choose. Or you can play just, Sanctified Wrath and Zealot and really go to town on that. I personally hate Of Dusk and Dawn and will not be playing it, but as much as I test it, I truly, truly dislike it. It's not for me, and I understand that is a subjective playstyle choice, and there's going to be a lot of people that love playing it and go to town, have Adder, but it's not the only playstyle. In fact, the Zealot Sanctified Wrath is actually a really, really good and easy way to, to get that and still be insanely competitive. Well, you might be dealing a little bit less damage. It's not so much less where you're like, oh crap, okay, like I'm in trouble now, right? You know what I mean? It's not... You're not sacrificing 20k damage to not play Of Dusk and Dawn. One of the only problems currently with Protection Paladin is Word of Glory healing, where before it felt really chonky and really fun. With the 40% HP buff, Word of Glory is pretty lackluster right now. And that is kind of a pretty big downside to Pally, and getting access to Hand of the Protector is really not easy. You have to go into 2 points of something that you don't want to get one thing that you want, but isn't even super critical to your playstyle or even necessary, just a really nice thing to have. So the padding issue there for what you have to give up towards what you're getting is kind of stinky and not fun. Admittedly, that's what it is, but you still have access to a ton of great abilities and a ton of great utility. Avenger Shield still kicks, you have Divine Toll for group kicks, you still have Blinding Light, which you can add with Hammer of Justice on the reduced cooldown because you can now take both talents. And you have access to Blessing of Spell Warding. You just have so many things at your disposal that Protection Paladin is probably going to be one of the better pug tanks, as it always has been, and is kind of remaining in that status of S-tier pug tank. Is it going to be the best tank in Dragonflight going forward? I don't know. Or should people be glooming and dooming on Protection Paladin? Absolutely the fuck not. This is an incredibly fun playstyle that is very fast-paced. You have the globals to do what you need to do and to remain defensive, to keep yourself alive, and still deal lots of damage while helping with off-healing if you so choose to do that. Protection Paladin is a fantastic spot and a great tank option for anyone to pick. Blood DK. Alright, so Protection Paladin is actually going to be my third alt. I should have said that earlier. I'm sorry. Blood DK is actually going to be my second alt. Process of elimination, you can figure out which is my first. Blood DK's toolkit has expanded in Dragonflight. Now we are losing, we've lost already the tier set, insane, crazy power. We're losing Gavel. Okay, fine. We're going back to a more traditional style of playing Blood, which in all honesty for me is just the most wonderful metal music to my ears. I have always loved Blood DK. I've played it throughout Shadowlands. I played it back in Cataclysm when I used to play, and I played it in BFA as well when I came back. It was one of the first tanks that I leveled. It is highly self-sustainable. They have 10 out of 5 stars for self-sustain. I'm obviously exaggerating. But they just don't need a healer. They can easily keep themselves alive. The thing is the technical rotation for having to pool resources, which has actually gotten a lot easier since Shadowlands, is still a factor on whether or not you're going to live, because the way you mitigate damage of Blood DK is by healing yourself back up, right? There are some pulls where I have seen in a matter of 5-6 seconds my HP bar go from 100 to 10 to 100 to 20 to 100 to 10 to 100 to 90, and just bouncing back and forth, and my healer actually having a panic attack as this is happening. He's like, I don't know what to do. Do I lay on hands you, or do I just leave you alone? But that is the beauty of Blood DK, is how you live is in your own hands. We have a new playstyle now with full uptime, pretty much full combat uptime on Death and Decay, which is absolutely, it's a lot of fun to play with, right? But it does require you to work on your positioning, to know when you're actually going to move, to not place Death and Decay and just move out of it 2 seconds later, and to really kind of control the battlefield, which is what Death Knights have always really been good at anyway. You're getting a second charge of grip, so you're going to have 3 taunts off the bat, which is going to help with snap threat when you need it, because grips are a taunt. And you have taunt. You're getting massive absorbs with big blood shields added on to with Gloom Ward. You're getting the Umbilicus Eternus Vampiric Blood, big blood plague damage shield, which is actually really noticeable. When I was doing keys, there would always be like a good 4 seconds after Vamp Blood would be out, where I'm like, wait a minute, am I taking damage? My HP bar is not moving. And it's just that big Vamp Blood shield just taking obviously the priority damage until finally the damage starts hitting my HP bar again, and then I have to start worrying about death striking. But yeah, so there's so many good things around Blood DK right now. The tree is feeling a little rigid, if you ask me. We are losing some stuff going from Shadowlands into Dragonflight. Without a doubt, we are losing stuff. But we're gaining a lot of really good things as well, which kind of takes that feel bad, and you're like, oh, well, yeah. Like, you're losing old shinies, and you're gaining new shinies. So you're like, okay, this sucks to lose, but this is really awesome to gain. We're getting access to Slappy Hands full-time. A lot of different damage components as well. Empower Rune Weapon, which is really, really nice. The reduced Dancing Rune Weapon, Crimson Rune Weapon, Legendary, whatever you want to call it, is coming back. So there's not a problem there. Easy, easy, easy to get to. Tombstone is going to feel like a nuke with Shattering Bone as well. Shattering Bone deals triple damage inside your Death and Decay, which is why you obviously want to have as much Death and Decay uptime as possible, and consuming 5 Bone Shield stacks is something you really want to do at once to make big AoE boom, which is really, really fun to play around. Death's Caress will now generate 2 Bone Shield charges at the cost of 1 rune, which is going to add a lot of fluidity into the rotation and allow really good choice. Do you absolutely need 3 Bone Shield stacks specifically right now, and you have the runes to use on them? You can use Marrow Rend. Most of the time, you're going to be using Death's Caress to gain those Bone Shield stacks, but that also means that on pull, you can get Bone Shield stacks at a distance. One of the biggest things with Blood DK throughout the Shadowlands experience, without Crimson Rune Weapon, or without Dancing Rune Weapon going, like on a fresh pull, if you still had Dancing Rune Weapon on CD, was starting a pull. My god, you had no runic power, you were in danger in the first 4 or 5 seconds of a pull, and if you screwed up your opener, it was pretty easy to get globaled. Crimson Rune Weapon came in, you hit Dancing Rune Weapon on pull, you have 5 Bone Shield stacks. Now you can just hit Death's Caress. You can still hit Dancing Rune Weapon, but now you can just hit Death's Caress. The amount of self-sustain and tankiness that we're getting for Blood DK has me very excited to play this spec, and I cannot wait to get into and leveling my Blood DK up to level 70 and having a lot of fun with it. So that's going to be my second alt. And lastly, my one true love, Protection Warrior. Now, Protection Warrior might not be the crazy S+ tier, whatever, but they are still starting off this expansion 1,000% better than they were starting off last expansion. Shadowlands basically gutted Protection Warrior, and this new talent rework is giving them so much. I have been this is the tree, the class and spec tree I have played with the most, working out different builds, optimizing this and that, defensive and tankiness versus offensive prowess, and what do I want? Which is one that I can give up for the other, but what do I need when I go here? And I have to say, playing around with that has been incredibly fun. There's just so much to do with the spec tree. In my opinion, it is the best spec tree out of all the tanks, you have, there's like maybe 2 or 3 dead talents. And out of those 2 or 3, they're actually not bad talents. You just have so many other good things to take that you're like, I don't see a scenario where I ever take this one specific talent because there's just so many other crazy good options that I want to take before it. And that is the way a spec tree should be done. The class tree is introducing a lot of new and fun abilities. Shockwave, just dealing absurd amount of damage, feels really good to play in Mythic Plus. I know where I stood in the Shockwave debate before. Whatever, we're over it. It is what it is. Let's take what we can get. And Shockwave is dealing absurd damage, so screw it. That's what we're doing. We're doing absurd Shockwave damage. Thunderous Roar is a really fun button to press as well, and customizing that down to a 1-minute CD is going to be an amazing raid talent and even a viable Mythic Plus talent if you so choose. The difference between a Thunderous Roar bleed build versus a Shockwave build really isn't that much DPS, and unless you're going for the most bleeding edge keys to try and eco as much DPS as you can really play however you want. If you don't want to play Shockwave, don't play it. If you want to play it, right? As long as you're just having fun being a tank. And Prot Warrior is really fun being, like, their self-sustain is still kind of meh. I'll have to admit it is a flaw, but they have easy access to Impending Victory and Indomitable at the same time, where all of Shadowlands, they've been on the same row. You've never been able to take both. So now, without having to get a kill, you can just straight up have a little bit more than a health stone, a Warlock Health Stones, amount of healing to your HP, which the 40 HP increase buff didn't change anything, because it's percentage based and not attack spell power based. So you have a fairly easy way to get yourself out of a jam if you do get in trouble. You have Battle-Scarred Veteran added into the talent tree, which is a new ability. When you drop below 30% health, you take 80% less damage, and you have 100% increased healing received. You proc that and you hit Imp-Vic, you're basically at 100% again, and you are good to go with an 80% damage reduction. But this is definitely Prot Warrior has to be one of the tankiest tanks in Dragonflight right now. In the beta, it just feels incredibly tanky. It is still fairly high APM, actions per minute, but you get stupid amounts of ignore pain healing. You get like Indomitable, Imp Victory when you're in trouble. You have easy access to a lot of great tanky abilities, and your damage is pretty crazy too. The simplicity of it, really, it's not a very difficult rotation. It's not too button bloaty, although if you're trying to maximize how much damage you can do in your opener, that can feel a little button bloaty because you do have several things that you have to press in a fairly quick sequence before you can get into the meat of the damage, but it's really not that difficult to do once you kind of get into a set rotation of what buttons you're pressing to deal a lot of damage. You have access to a ton of stuns now, by the way. Stormbolt, Shield Charge, Shockwave, Intimidating Shout is another one. Getting access to all of these stops was really not always that easy to do, right? You had to give up your second charge of charge to get Stormbolt. Intimidating Shout, well, it's useful where it's useful, but it's not where it's not. Shockwave has always been baseline, but just felt good for the stop, but now it deals a lot of damage. Stormbolt is a 4-second stun at range. Shield Charge has no minimum range, but a range of 25 yards for another 4-second stun. You do feel like you have a lot of great options for stops, and the amount of degree of customizability that you have in your class and spec tree feels crazy good, and I cannot wait to start off an expansion where Prot Warrior is just really good. I've been playing Prot Warrior since Season 1 of Shadowlands. I know what it means to be a crappy tank. The fact that they are just starting off not in the basement of basements of basements it just makes me super happy. So that is my overview for all of the tanks. Hopefully I have given you enough information on feeling and technicality and flaws and positives for all the tank and maybe help you make a decision, because I have been getting that in my Discord lately and YouTube comments. I really don't know what to alt between this and this or whatever have you not. This video was supposed to come out this morning. Something happened. I had to leave the house. Don't worry, everything's all good. But yeah, so it's coming out tonight. We are Sunday the 20th. I'm going to be editing this and throwing it out as quickly as I can. I hope you guys are excited for Dragonflight as much as I am. We are 8 days away now. We're like a week. It's like a week. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to all my patrons for making stuff like this happen, and happy tanking.